Thanks for joining me. I'm Matilda Sarah from Displayr. Now, Displayr is a cloud-based tool built for the analysis and reporting of survey data. It's purpose-built for tracking research. And today I'm going to show you how Displayr allows you to automate most of your tracking process. I'm also going to show you some of the time series features that Displayr is jam-packed with. Now, I'm presenting from within Displayr as it's designed for interactive presentations, for reporting, and for survey analysis. And much of what I'm going to show you can also be done in our other tool, Q, as well. If you have questions during the demo, we have a team waiting for them, ready to go. So please put them in the chat box and they'll answer them as we go. Now, I'm going to start by showing you the biggest time saver. But before I do this, let's look at how tracking for many market research companies looks. So there's lots of back and forth. There's lots of patching together different things, and it can be really error prone and time consuming. Now, the goal is to have Displayr rather than you doing everything automatically. And turn me off because you'll be able to see the full screen. So this is a big fast food tracker that we've run. Now, the entire analysis and report has been created in Displayr, and yes, you can export it as editable charts to PowerPoint if you want to. Most researchers these days are switching to cloud reporting because it has lots of benefits like interactivity and auto-updating and things. Now, this report has lots of tracking charts like this one here, which shows us category penetration over time or reach and frequency over time. Now, it currently shows us results from July 2015 until September 2017. So it's a little bit old, but it's a really great example. In a moment, I'm going to update it with new data, and I'll use a cumulative file that includes all the old data and one more quarter. It will also include some new variables, but first what I want to do is draw your attention to a few things. Now, this report currently shows us that burger consumption in the past month is at 83%, and this is a rise of 4% from the previous period. So again, we can look up here in the visualization as well. Now I'm going to replace my data file with a new one that contains the additional quarter. So it's as easy as this. I'm going to click update. Now, just quickly, you can connect lots of different survey platforms if you want to drip in data, but I'm just going to update it with the .sav file. So we're going to get to the December quarter and we'll click open. Now, updating your entire project is as simple as this. It will take a moment because it's got lots of thinking to do. Displayr is updating the calculations, it's updating the tables, and soon it will start to redraw the visualizations with revised data. Okay, so remember that this number here was 83% and now it's dropped to 78%, which is a 6% decline. And again, if we hover over here, we can see the extra quarters being added. So everything in this report has been automatically updated. The raw data, the underlying tables, the calculations, the text analysis, and all the visualizations. And that's where you get with automation. That's the end game. You can literally turn weeks of work into a click. You don't have to just take my word for it. That's what our clients tell us as well. All right, I'm going to start showing you some analysis so that you can see how everything works in Displayr. So I'm going to go into the edit version of this report. Now, this document feels a little bit like PowerPoint so that I can easily craft my narrative, but it's also got a massive statistical engine underlying it. And I can easily publish my work as a dashboard or export it to PowerPoint if I want. But let's kick off with some great time series visualizations that are designed to help us quickly see what's going on in the market. So I could have just imported my data the way you saw before, but I've started with my data file in it. first thing to note is that Displayr has formatted all of the questions for me. So date looks like a date. It's formatted the date of the questionnaire. We can see we've got categorical variables in there. We've got grid style variables in there, numeric, and so on. So I'm going to insert a page here. And I'll call it frequency buying. And I'm just going to drag onto the page a question here that shows the number of times people have ordered from different burger brands over the past little while. First thing I can do is sort my categories. Now, I want to look at this over time. And so again, I mentioned this date variable before. So it contains the actual date of the interview. And you can see that Displayr has automatically set it up as a date variable, which means we can see a calendar icon next to it. Now I'm going to drag that onto the question there to look at frequency of buying over time. So now what I've done is actually created a crosstab, and Displayr has automatically grouped the time into buckets of months. But you can see I've got way too much data here to figure out what we're looking at. So what I'm going to do is change the aggregation of month to quarterly. And to do that, I just click on the variable and I click my date time, and I'm just going to select it to quarter. Okay, so we're looking at tracking data, and our main focus is always on this very last period here. But by default, Displayr's stat tests compare each period with all other periods rather than just the one before. So we need to tell the software to compare to the previous period. Luckily, there are heaps of options here. So if I go into significance and advanced, I'm just going to change the test type to compare to previous period. Now, it has lots of options. I can compare year on year as well using a function called contrast period, but we're just going to look at it this way. And you can see that now I've got the correct statistical testing. Now, this blue arrow next to Arnold's tells us that consumption jumped up in the last period of time. So you and your clients can spend ages trying to make sense of this table here, or we can use a time series visualization. So I'm going to use a time series visualization, and I really like this one here. It's called a column with trend test. So I'm going to drag it to fit nicely into the page. And what we can see here is that Arnold's clearly has by far the highest average consumption. Now, remember we saw in the last table that it had jumped up in the last quarter, but we can see here that the trend lines at the bottom show us the trend over the past 3 years. And while Arnott's had a good last quarter, it's actually got a long-term decline going on. We can also see that some of these smaller brands are rising. So one thing we might want to do is set an interactive filter so that our end users can explore the published version of this dashboard without having to ask you to rerun anything. The easiest way to find things in Displayr is to type in this text box here. So I'm just going to type filters because I want to figure out where they are. Now it's highlighted in yellow where they are, so I'm just going to follow the prompts, and I'm going to do a list box filter because they look really nice, and we'll select age. Now I have a filter variable, so this is interactive, and we'll just make the page look nice here. Move it down a bit. Again, we'll make the filter fit. And you can see as we turn on and off different age groups, everything updates instantly. So when I hit published, your end user can now explore reports using filters. But now let's go back to this Arnold story and figure out what's going on. So I'm going to insert another page now. Now we're going to look at brand attributes. So I have a big grid style question here that's looking at all the brand attributes. Now this grid has 21 columns, but you can't actually see them all on the page because there are too many for it to show. So I'd have to use the scroll bar to figure it all out. Now, what I want to do now is cross this by month. So it's going to get really big. So there are two things that I want to show you here. First of all, remember we changed date to quarter. I'm going to create another version of date, and I'm going to rename this one to be monthly. You can easily manipulate and play with different variables that way. We're going to go date time, and we're going to ask it to be monthly. Now I'll drag on my month to create a crosstab. I've got 27 months of data. So let's look at how this grid looks now. Oh dear, I've got now 567 columns. So we can either spend all day trying to figure out what all of this means, or we can just use a visualization. So let's use a small multiples, which is a really, really nice way of looking at tracking data over time. So it's massive, so I am going to fit it to the page. All right, so remember we're looking at Arnold's, and remember that we'd seen a decline over time in Arnold's. And here we can start to understand why. So the red means a declining long-term trend, and the blue means growth. And what we can see is that Arnold's is struggling with value, with drinks, with cleanliness, with decor, with design, and with locations. So now we can really begin to understand what's going on in the long term and focus on what we need to improve. But if you remember before, we'd also seen that it had improved in the last quarter. So let's have a look at this story over the past 6 months by creating another filter. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click filter in the side here because I don't want a big filter for customers to necessarily, or end users to interact with. I'm just going to have a look at what's going on. So we click monthly, and I'm just going to say within the last 6 month period, and I'm going to create a filter that way. So now I have a filter. You can see it's turned on here. We can see that actually in the last 6 months, Arnold's has done well in drinks, opening hours, drive-through being fast and easy as well. So there are areas it can focus on to do even better, but that's where it's improved in the last 6 months. All right, I'm going to move on to another little topic here that a lot of people that do trackers use, which is smoothers. Now, one thing you can also do in Displayr is set up your brand templates really easily, just like you would in PowerPoint. And I do have some templates set up here. And so now I've applied my template and my page looks a lot nicer. So you can have everything customized for different clients in different reports. Now, if we go back to what I was talking about, smoothing. Smoothing is a great tool to help your audience spot meaningful changes in the data. Now, I've got some data here, and the point of this data is that it's not in that .sab file. It's actually in an Excel file, which I'm just copying now. So I'm going to copy and paste that into Displayr by going Control V. So that's now my Excel data in Displayr. You can analyze as many different types of data as you like. You can analyze as many data sets as you like. You can merge together different data sets, and you can also join them if you have similar variables. So it's really flexible with things like that. All right, but let's turn this pasted data into a visualization. So again, I'm going to go to visualization. I'm going to pick a column and we'll get this on the page. Now you can put as many visualizations as you like on one page. So if you wanted to do a traditional cockpit style dashboard, you can do that, or you can do more PowerPoint style. And I'm going to show you some more inspiration as well with some other tracking dashboards in a moment. But we now have our busy time series data. And what we want to do is add a trend line to it, a smoother. Of course, we can go moving average if we want, but why would you when there are much more sophisticated ways to smooth out the data? The moving average is actually not telling us the right story here. So let's look at something like LOS, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is just a different way of smoothing out the data, or the old Friedman's super smoother, which apart from sounding really terrific, has actually done a nice job at explaining the overall pattern that's going on. All right, so there are lots of smoothers and ways that you can really get under the hood with your tracking data. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is publishing and exporting the report. So if we wanted to publish the report, there are a few options that we can do. Now, I'm going to use this frequency as buying as an example. And let's just add a little image in here as well. I'm going to control copy, control paste, so that we can make it look a little bit more designery. And again, you'll probably spend a little bit longer formatting this, but you get the gist. All right. So up here are my publish options. I've got heaps of them, but the first thing we could do is look at exporting to PowerPoint. I'm going to just export that selected page. Now, when exporting to PowerPoint, you have the option of exporting as editable charts, so you can edit them in PowerPoint, or exporting as images. Now, keep in mind that most of the visualizations that we've looked at so far are not available in PowerPoint. They're specific visualizations that you can use in Displayr. So what happens in that instance is Displayr will pick the next best alternative. So it will pick, I'm making a mess there, it will pick the most likely alternative or the best match. So here's my PowerPoint. I've exported exactly as is. I've exported as an image. And obviously I don't need my filter because you can't filter in PowerPoint because it's static. But what we could do is publish this as a web page. We can log in and password protect if we want to. And then all we need to do is hit publish or republish in this instance. And we have everything there interactive and ready to go. Okay, so I said that I'd show some more interesting dashboards, and this is a tracking dashboard for mobile phones. Now, instead of using a menu down the side, we've used hyperlinks across the top where we can kind of feel like we're in a bit more of a web page than a traditional PowerPoint slide. Now, let's go back to the front. So this uses interactive visualizations where we've put thresholds in and these change when the thresholds reach. We have text analysis going on here. So we've used machine learning to automate the text analysis. So again, when we drip the data in, everything gets categorized and turns into these visualizations here. We've got some driver analysis going on. So we've got some advanced analysis and some drop downs and things as well. So when we update, everything is going to update. And let's go back and have a look at updating again. So I'm going to the edit version of that dashboard. take a moment to load because it's got a lot of information in here. So there's that edit version. Now, remember, I just have to click on this. I have to update the data file and select it from my computer. So I've got 4 weeks and I'm going to do 12. So it's updating the file now, updating the visualizations, the analysis, the text analysis, all of it's being updated. Now, this thumbs up. Oh, before we go any further, there are a few things that have changed file to file. So it's giving me a warning. It will append any new variables. But in this instance, it's just telling me that the spelling of state was stage. So that was just a spelling mistake, and I'm happy to change that. So I accept those changes. So remember I was saying this is a thumbs up before. Now it's a neutral. This was a 31 and now it's a 34. And we've seen that everything's updated there. So if your trackers are making you feel a little bit like this at the moment, and you want to feel like this, then go to Displayr.com and click book a demo, and we will show you exactly how to get your trackers sorted in Displayr so you can save heaps of time, reduce errors, and just up your reporting game. Thanks for your time, everyone.